My name is Grace Thornton, 46 years old, marketing consultant, homeowner, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I was loved. It happened on a Tuesday evening, one of those nights when the air feels heavy with rain and routine. I'd come home early from a client meeting with a migraine, the kind that makes every light feel personal. The apartment was quiet, except for the low hum of Walter's voice coming from the bedroom. I smiled faintly at first. He always talked loudly on speakerphone. He said it made him feel important. Then I heard my name. Robert, come on, man. Grace is fine. She's not my dream girl, but she's solid, stable. I settled because, well, I was 40. Options dry up. The words slid under my skin like ice water. I froze in the hallway, one heel half off grocery bag still dangling from my hand. She's safe, he continued, a chuckle in his throat. Reliable, pays the bills. I mean, she's not exactly exciting, but she keeps the lights on. That counts for something, right? My heart stuttered. I wanted to walk away, to shut the door, make noise, anything, but I couldn't. I just stood there, listening to him summarize 4 years of my life into a financial statement. Honestly, he said, she's practical. I get comfort, she gets company. It works. His brother Robert laughed. Man, that's cold. It's not cold, Walter insisted. It's realistic. She's not 25 anymore, and neither am I. We're both settling. She just doesn't know it. Something in me cracked quiet and precise. I'd built my life around calmness, steady career, clean apartment, predictable love. I thought predictability was safety, but in that moment, it felt like suffocation. He settled, for me. I pressed my back to the wall, watching the shadow of him pacing inside the bedroom. The man I'd shared. A home, a bed, a future with. Speaking about me, like I was an insurance policy that paid on time. She's practical, he repeated, laughing. And she thinks I'm lucky to have her. Honestly, that makes her easy to manage. I didn't cry. Not then. The body has strange ways of protecting itself. Mine went numb. My fingers tightened around the grocery bag until the milk carton inside burst with a dull pop. The sound startled me enough to move. I stepped away quietly, dropped the ruined bag in the kitchen sink, and stared at the mess spreading across the counter. My reflection in the window looked foreign, someone pale, composed, and dangerously quiet. He came out of the bedroom minutes later, phone still in hand. Hey, babe, he said, grinning, unaware that my world had just ended. You're home early. You okay? I forced a smile. Just a headache. He kissed my cheek absent-mindedly and returned to scrolling through his phone. His cologne lingered after he passed a scent I suddenly couldn't stand. I watched him open the fridge, frown at the spilled milk, and say, You should be more careful. Something inside me whispered, yes, I should. That night, I lay beside him in bed, the glow from his phone flickering across his face as he laughed at something online. I studied the outline of his jaw, the small scar on his chin, the mouth that had once told me I was the calm in his storm. Now I knew the storm was him, and I'd been the shelter he resented. He fell asleep easily. He always did. People who believe the world owes them comfort usually do. I stared at the ceiling, each breath, measured each thought, sharp as glass. 4 years. 4 years of shared bills, shared dreams, shared space, but never truly shared respect. 4 years of subtle jabs disguised as jokes. You don't really understand fashion, do you? You should smile more. It softens your face. You're lucky I don't care about appearances as much as other guys. I'd laughed those comments off. I'd told myself he was insecure, that love meant patience. Now I realized I'd mistaken tolerance for love. The rain started tapping against the window, soft at first, then steady. Walter mumbled something in his sleep, turning away from me. I whispered into the dark, You think you settled for me? My voice sounded foreign, steady, deliberate. I wonder what you'll call it when I walk away. For a long time, I watched the city lights blur through the rain. My mind cataloged details automatically, the condo deed under my name, the car registered to me, the credit cards where he was just an authorized user, the savings account he didn't know existed, the strength he never realized I had. Every betrayal leaves a seed. His sentence had planted mine. By dawn, I'd made a quiet promise to myself. Not revenge, not even justice, just liberation. If he saw me as practical, I would become precise. If he thought I was easy to manage, I'd vanish in a way that couldn't be undone. Walter woke late, stretching with the lazy entitlement of someone who believes the world waits for him. Morning, he said, yawning. You look tired. I smiled faintly. Couldn't sleep. Maybe try that yoga app I got you. It's supposed to help women your age relax. Maybe I'll try that, I said softly, already picturing the silence that would fill this apartment once I was gone. He kissed my forehead without looking at me, then wandered off humming. The door shut behind him with a click that echoed longer than it should have. I stood there alone, barefoot on the cold tile, the first light of morning breaking across the countertop. My reflection stared back from the glass door, calm, controlled, dangerous in a way even I hadn't recognized yet. He thought he'd settled for me. He was about to learn what it felt like to lose everything he took for granted. For the next 3 days, I played my part like I'd been rehearsing for it my whole life. Grace Thornton, the dependable partner, the calm woman who never overreacted, the same woman Walter had labeled practical. He had no idea that beneath my smile, I was dismantling the entire structure of his comfort piece by piece. The first morning after that night, I woke before him and brewed his favorite coffee, the imported beans he insisted on, but never paid for. I poured it just the way he liked, 2 sugars splash of almond milk, cinnamon dust on top. When he stumbled into the kitchen, stretching like a king in his own palace, I smiled warmly. "Morning," I said. He kissed my cheek absently. "You're the best, babe." He didn't notice how my eyes followed the way his hand hovered over my wallet on the counter, the one I always left there, by habit. He pulled out my card and said, "I'll grab lunch later with Robert. You don't mind, right?" I didn't. In fact, I encouraged it. Take him somewhere nice. Try that French place you like. He grinned the grin of a man too secure to sense danger. That's my Grace, always treating me. Always. That afternoon, I sat at my desk and reviewed every shared account, every automatic payment, every trace of his dependency. Netflix my card, phone plan my name, car insurance solely mine, his gym membership gifted by me using my card, even the sleek, gray BMW he bragged about to his friends bought under my financing. He called it our car. I called it a reminder of how cleverly he'd blurred the lines between love and convenience. I printed documents, highlighted names, and smiled as the printer hummed like a quiet accomplice. Then I started creating folders. Folder A, my assets. Folder B, his dependencies. Folder C, what goes when he leaves. It wasn't rage that guided me. It was clarity, cold, merciful clarity. That evening, Walter came home with shopping bags, designer labels, new cologne, and a watch that cost more than a month's rent for most people. He tossed the bags on the couch. Got a discount from my guy at the store. You'll love it. I peeked at the price tag. No discount. Full price plus vanity tax. Looks good on you, I said lightly. He smirked. I know. You should dress up more, babe. You have potential. A few tweaks, maybe some highlights. He gestured at my hair. I nodded slowly, every cell in my body memorizing the tone. The casual condescension, the assumption that I was lucky to orbit his world. You think I should change? I asked, voice mild. He didn't catch the undertone. Just a little. Men are visual creatures, Grace. Presentation matters. I'll keep that in mind, I said softly. After all, you never know when presentation makes all the difference. He winked, satisfied with himself. See, that's why you're great. You listen. If only he knew how carefully I was listening now. The next day, while he bragged about his men's wellness retreat scheduled for the weekend, a luxury spa trip I had unknowingly paid for, I began preparing my escape. He stood in the living room packing supplements and cologne into a sleek duffel. 5 days, babe. Don't miss me too much, he said. I smiled. You deserve the break. He paused, surprised. Wow, you're being so supportive. Usually you act like I'm wasting money. Not at all, I said, voice velvet smooth. It's money well spent. He laughed and kissed me, tasting of arrogance and expensive coffee. As soon as he turned away, I texted my lawyer, finalize everything for Monday. That night I went through his drawers, not to snoop, but to count. Count the things he valued more than me. Designer belts, colognes, watches, photos from old parties where he posed with women like props. Then I found a letter from a cosmetic clinic, his appointment for a hairline transplant consultation. He'd told me it was a business meeting. I laughed silently. The irony of a man obsessed with youth depending on a woman he thought was aging out of his league. My hand hovered over the letter for a moment. Then I folded it neatly and left it in his drawer. I wanted him to find it later and remember that I knew. On Friday night, we went out for dinner. He wanted sushi. I wanted silence. The waiter handed him the bill. Without hesitation, he slid it toward me. Thanks, babe. I smiled sweetly, pulled out my card, and said, Of course. But before handing it over, I glanced at him. You know, I said sometimes I think about where I'd be if I hadn't met you. He looked intrigued. Hopefully not alone, he joked. Maybe not, I replied, but maybe more awake. He frowned, confused, but I was already handing the card to the waiter. That small flicker of unease in his eyes, that was my appetizer for the night. Later in bed, he reached for me, half distracted, murmuring compliments that felt memorized. I let him. Not out of affection, but out of curiosity. I wanted to see what it felt like to say goodbye to someone without telling them. As he fell asleep, his arm heavy across my stomach, I stared at the ceiling again. Only this time, I wasn't trapped. I was counting hours. 12 more until his Uber arrived, 15 until silence, 20 until freedom. My breathing slowed, syncing with the rhythm of a plan solidifying in my mind. He thought I was dependable, predictable, contained. He'd never met the part of me that had been quietly saving, quietly preparing, quietly learning to disappear. Tomorrow, he'd go to his spa retreat, his men's journey of rejuvenation. And when he came back, rejuvenated or not, there would be no grace, no home, no comfort, and no version of his life left to return to. Because I wasn't going to confront him. I was going to erase myself from his story. As the clock hit midnight, I whispered the same words that had haunted me since that phone call. You settled. Then softly, almost smiling, I added, and so will I, just not for you. Walter left at 7:02 a.m., sharp, humming a pop song and dragging his sleek duffel bag toward the waiting Uber. He kissed me on the forehead before he left, still smelling like the cologne I'd bought him. Try not to miss me too much, babe, he said. Oh, I won't, I replied, smiling. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. The moment the elevator doors closed, I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for 4 years. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, the powerful kind. The kind that fills the air when you know you've just taken control back. I walked to the window, watched his Uber disappear down the street, then turned back to the apartment, his temple of vanity, my prison of politeness. The morning light exposed everything I'd been pretending not to see. His expensive sneakers lined up like trophies. The unopened self-improvement books he bragged about reading the mirror wall, he insisted on installing for light, and the faint scent of ego lingering in every corner. I didn't feel sorrow. I felt methodical. This wasn't heartbreak, it was surgery. By 8:11 a.m., I was on the phone. Hi, this is Grace Thornton. I need a same-day moving service. Discreet, please. I'll pay extra for speed. Discreet, the dispatcher asked. Yes, I said, glancing at Walter's photo on the wall. Him grinning arm draped around me like a medal. Very discreet. She hesitated. When do you need them now? By 9:15, 2 movers arrived, young, efficient, silent. They didn't ask questions when I pointed at the furniture and said, everything that looks expensive, pack it carefully. It's mine. By noon, my paintings, work, desk books, and grandmother's piano were loaded onto the truck. I left the furniture. Walter claimed to have chosen the faux marble coffee table, the ridiculous velvet couch, the neon good vibes only sign. They could rot here. As I worked, I noticed how easy it was to untangle myself from him. Every item that left made me breathe easier. Next, call my lawyer, Elaine. She'd helped me with estate planning years ago. When she heard my tone, she didn't ask for details. Do you need documentation for asset protection, she asked. Yes, I replied, and I'm selling the condo. That's sudden. Not sudden, I said. Overdue. Elaine arranged everything. Title transfer sale papers, digital signatures. I'd already been approached by a buyer last month, someone who'd loved the location but wanted a quick close. It was as if the universe had been quietly waiting for me to wake up. Then came the utilities, gas, electric, internet, streaming subscriptions, all under my name, all disconnected with a few clicks. The sound of notifications filled the room like tiny victories. Account closed, authorization revoked, password changed. Even the gym membership, the one Walter said we should share, was canceled. I smiled as I clicked terminate account. By mid-afternoon, the apartment was stripped of my life. What remained looked hollow, like a stage set built for someone else's performance. I walked to Walter's side of the closet, his designer shirts arranged by color, his collection of watches displayed like museum artifacts. One by one, I packed them neatly into boxes. Not out of kindness, out of precision. He'd always accused me of being too clinical. This time I wanted to live up to it. I even bubble-wrapped his cologne bottles. The irony amused me. When everything was sealed, I labeled each box with clean handwriting. RT. Personal items. 21 boxes in total. At 4:00 p.m., I rented a climate-controlled storage unit under his initials. paid the first month in advance. The storage manager, a quiet older man, handed me the keys. Would you like me to email the receipt? No, I said. Paper copy. I want him to touch it. Back at the condo, I placed the small envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, the storage unit key, the address, one note on white stationery. Walter, your belongings are safe. Unit paid through the 15th. Take care of yourself as well as you take care of your reflection. G. It wasn't anger, it was punctuation. Before leaving, I looked around one last time. The empty apartment shimmered in the late afternoon light. Without his noise, without his ego, it was finally beautiful, minimalist, clean mine. I imagined his return the key, turning the door, opening his confusion spreading like ink, the silence greeting him louder than any argument could. Not revenge, not even justice, just truth. He once told me I was predictable, so I decided to surprise him in the quietest way possible by removing myself entirely. At 6:10 p.m., I slid the condo keys into a small envelope, addressed to my realtor, and walked out. No suitcase, no drama. Just a woman with a plan and an ending written in her own hand. The elevator descended smoothly, reflecting my calm face in its mirrored walls. My pulse didn't race. My breathing was steady. When the doors opened, I stepped out into the night air, free for the first time in years. As I walked toward my new apartment, I realized something he'd always seen me as stable. He was right. I was the foundation he stood on. And now I'd finally let him feel what it's like to fall. Walter came back on Sunday evening, suntanned, smug, and humming some spa playlist that promised mindful masculinity. He was still wearing his white linen shirt opened 2 buttons too low, revealing the spray tan line at his chest. He wheeled his luggage down the hall, probably imagining my arms waiting to greet him. The door didn't open. He tried the key again. Nothing. He frowned, jiggled the handle, knocked twice, then harder. Grace, babe, did you lock the deadbolt again? No answer. Just the echo of his voice bouncing through the hallway. He bent down, peering through the narrow frosted window, expecting to see the familiar glow of his scented candles and our my home, but all he saw was emptiness. No couch, no rug, no mirror wall, just sunlight fading across bare floors. He tried the key again, confused, then panic began to bloom slow, but real. He pulled out his phone and called me. The first ring went through. I let it, then declined it. He tried again, declined. 3rd time straight to voicemail. Within minutes, texts began flooding in. Walter, where are you? Walter, did we get robbed? Walter, Grace, this isn't funny. Walter, why isn't my key working? Walter, babe, answer me. I didn't. I was at my new apartment, sitting on the floor with a cup of tea and the window open to the river breeze. The silence here was beautiful, alive. Not a void, but a clean start. At 8:13 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A call from an unknown number. I knew the pattern, Walter using Robert's phone. I answered. Grace, what the hell did you do? He barked. His voice had that performative calm men use when they're panicking. I moved. I said simply, moved. You moved where? What happened to all our stuff? My stuff is with me. Yours is in storage, the keys on the counter. A beat of silence. Then storage. Are you insane? You can't just... I cut in. Everything in that condo was under my name. You were an authorized user, not a partner. You said it yourself. I was practical. His breathing changed, quick and shallow. Grace, this is cruel. You blindsided me. No, I said quietly. You blinded yourself. Is this about that stupid phone call, Grace? You weren't supposed to hear that. But I did. I didn't mean it. You know how Robert is. He goads me, and You meant every word, especially the part where you called me easy to manage. The line went silent. Then softly he said, You're overreacting. That word, overreacting. The weapon of small men who confuse control with reason. I'm not overreacting, I said. I'm responding. Grace, please. Let's talk. We can fix this. We can't fix what was never broken, Walter. You just didn't like that the mirror stopped flattering you. He let out a bitter laugh. You think you're some hero now? You're a coward, Grace, walking away instead of facing things. I smiled to myself. No, I faced you long enough. This is me turning towards something better. Where am I supposed to go? He demanded, voice cracking for the first time. You're resourceful, I said softly. You'll figure it out. You always do when someone else is paying. There was a long pause, and then a quiet, shaking voice I'd never heard before. You can't do this to me. I gave you my best years. Your best years, I repeated. You gave me your reflection, and your receipts, I gave you a home. He whispered something I could barely make out. You're not who I thought you were. That made me laugh quietly. No, Walter. I'm exactly who I've always been. You just never bothered to look. Then I ended the call. 2 hours later, Robert called. His tone was accusatory brotherly bravado dripping through the phone. Grace, what the hell happened? Walter's freaking out. Tell him the truth, I said. He settled for me. I just made sure he got exactly what he settled for, nothing more. You can't just evict someone like that. Evict, I laughed softly. He wasn't on the lease. He lived off my goodwill. That lease expired the same day my patience did. I hung up before he could reply. By morning, I had 52 missed calls, 31 voicemails, and over 100 messages ranging from pleading to threats. My favorite one was short. You think you won, you'll regret this. I didn't. I'd already won the moment I walked out without looking back. But what struck me most wasn't his anger. It was his confusion. He truly couldn't comprehend how the woman who folded his shirts, cooked his meals, and quietly tolerated his small cruelties could dismantle his world in a single weekend. He thought love meant endurance. He mistook silence for weakness, and now that silence was his punishment. 2 days later, Elaine called to confirm the sale of the condo. The new owners would move in next week. Clean transfer, she said. No loose ends. Perfect. I changed my number that afternoon. New SIM card, new plan, new start. The old number I left on silent just to see what he'd do with it. At 10:17 that night, one final voicemail came through before I disconnected it for good. Walter's voice breaking for the first time. Grace, I don't understand what you're doing. You're destroying everything we built. You're supposed to be the stable one, the good one. You're proving me right. You're heartless. A pause. A ragged inhale. Please. Just tell me where I went wrong. I deleted it without listening to the end. Standing by my new window, the city lights reflecting in the glass, I whispered the truth aloud. You went wrong the moment you mistook my kindness for convenience. Outside, the river shimmered under the street lamps, quiet, steady, free. Exactly the way I intended to be. The first sign that Walter's ego was cracking came not from a phone call, but from a post. 3 days after I cut off all contact, his Instagram lit up with a carefully filtered photo of him staring moodily out of a cafe window. Caption: When someone betrays your loyalty, they only betray themselves. Heart healing. Hashtag new beginnings. Hash self-love. The comments poured in immediately. His followers, mostly women who once called him goals, flooded the section with sympathy. You'll bounce back, king. Her loss. You deserve better. Walter. I almost felt sorry for them. They were still trapped in the illusion he curated. The one where he was a successful, self-made man who carried women through life instead of being carried by them. Almost. The next day, another post, Walter posing in front of the empty condo building, pretending it was still his. Caption: Moving out by choice. Time for bigger things. Bigger things, perhaps like humility. But karma is patient. By that evening, someone commented, Didn't Grace own that condo? And just like that, the first crack spread. Within hours, screenshots of his old posts resurfaced the ones where he'd bragged about dating smart, not hard, or joked about finding financially stable women with emotional availability. The comments turned sharp. So you used her and got used up, huh? Bro's the main character in his own scam. The math is mathing, and it says you were a kept man. The illusion shattered fast. For a man who lived through the validation of strangers, watching his curated image crumble publicly was worse than losing me. The following morning, Elaine called. Grace, he's trying to file a claim. She said calm but amused. A claim. Common law marriage. Says he's entitled to half your assets because you live together. I actually laughed out loud. We live in a state that doesn't recognize common law marriage. Exactly, she said. I already drafted a response letter. Would you like me to make it poetic or professional? Both. She chuckled. Already done. Expect his lawyer to vanish within a week. And she was right. By Friday, the legal threat disappeared. But Walter didn't. He showed up at my office building unannounced, wearing sunglasses indoors, and clutching a bouquet of wilted roses like a prop from a bad drama. Security called me downstairs. He looked thinner, not physically, but in presence, like a balloon deflated but still trying to float. Grace, he began, voice shaky but rehearsed. I made a mistake. Okay, I said stupid things. Everyone says stupid things. Yes, I said. But not everyone says them about the person paying their rent. He flinched. I was just talking Grace. You know how men are with their brothers. It's banter. Banter, I repeated slowly. So when you said you settled for me because you were running out of options, that was banter. He looked down. You're twisting things. I almost laughed. You're the one who twisted the truth until it looked flattering enough to live with. He took a step forward. Can we just start over? I can move in with you again. I held up a hand. Walter, no. There's nothing to start over from. You didn't love me. You loved what I provided: comfort, validation, stability. I was your soft landing, not your partner. He shook his head, eyes glassy. You think you're better than me? No, I said. Just freer. His jaw clenched. You'll regret this. Nobody wants a cold woman like you. I smiled, the kind that cuts deeper than words. I'd rather be cold than hollow. Security escorted him out quietly. He didn't resist, but the way he glanced back, a mix of disbelief and panic, told me he finally understood. He'd lost not just the comfort I gave him, but the audience for his performance. That evening, I opened my private account and watched the spectacle unfold. Walter had posted again a long caption about emotional abuse, claiming I weaponized money to control him. The irony was so rich it could have been bottled and sold. For a few hours, sympathy returned. Then someone found screenshots of our old photos. Under one of them, a picture of him holding up my car keys. His caption read, "When your woman invests in you, that's love. When she complains about it, that's manipulation." The comment section turned into a war zone. Even his brother Robert weighed in, writing, "Walter, stop embarrassing yourself." By midnight, he deleted his account. By morning, his story, influencer, exposed as living off girlfriend, was trending on a gossip forum. I didn't post a single word. I didn't need to. Silence was my loudest statement. Still, in private moments, I thought about him not with longing but curiosity. How does someone so obsessed with being admired recover when admiration turns to mockery? Maybe he'd rebuild, maybe he'd reinvent, but he'd never forget that it was his own words that undid him, not mine. One evening, as I walked home from work, the city glowing gold in the late sun, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Walter, I get it now. You wanted to humiliate me. Congratulations. You won. I stared at it for a long moment, then replied with a single line. Grace. No, Walter. I just stopped playing a game you built around yourself. You lost all on your own. Then I blocked the number. Later that night, I lit a single candle by my window. The flame flickered quietly against the glass. In its reflection, I saw not vengeance, but peace. There's a moment after long silence when you finally hear your own heartbeat clearly again. That's what this was. The sound of my life resuming, unedited, unfiltered, unperformed. Walter once told me I was predictable, and I was, until the day I stopped orbiting his world and started building my own. 2 weeks passed. Enough time for the noise to die down, but not enough for him to rebuild whatever fantasy he used to live in. I hadn't heard from Walter directly since the last message I blocked, though I still received the echoes of his collapse through other people. A friend from work who followed him out of morbid curiosity told me he'd been fired from his PR agency. Apparently his manager had found out about the gossip thread, the one where he called women strategic investments. The company no longer felt comfortable with him representing clients. The irony was exquisite, but the silence didn't last. It was a Thursday night. I'd just finished unpacking my new apartment completely. The place was small, but full of light plants by the window. My grandmother's piano in the corner, the faint smell of new beginnings. Then came a knock, 3 sharp, insistent. I knew that knock. Walter. My heart didn't race this time. It simply steadied itself. I opened the door, halfway, the chain still on. He stood there, rain-soaked, holding a half-empty bottle of wine and looking 10 years older. His shirt was wrinkled, his shoes, muddy eyes, bloodshot. Grace, he said, forcing a smile. You look incredible. He was trying for charm, but it came out brittle. What do you want Walter to talk? There's nothing left to say. Please. His voice cracked. Just one night. I have nowhere to go. Robert kicked me out. My mom won't answer my calls. I'm staying in a motel by the freeway. He looked at me as if that fact should earn him pity. I studied him for a long moment, the once polished man now unraveling under the weight of his own reflection. I'd imagined this scene before, back when I was still angry. In those fantasies, I'd slam the door. But now seeing him like this, the anger had evaporated. All that remained was detachment. You said you wanted to talk, I said. So talk. He hesitated. I miss you. I messed up. I thought I could do better, but... Stop, I said gently. That's not an apology. That's desperation. He frowned as if the distinction confused him. You really don't care, do you? I cared for 4 years, I said. That's more than enough for one lifetime. He stepped forward, pressing a hand against the doorframe. Just let me in, Grace. I don't want to sleep alone tonight. His voice lowered almost a whisper. You used to say I was home for you. I tilted my head. Yes, but homes can burn down. He winced, his bravado faltering. You're cruel. I shook my head slowly. No, Walter. I'm clear. He tried another tactic, the one that had always worked before. His eyes softened, his tone turning wounded. Do you know what it's like out there for a man my age? Nobody wants someone with baggage. I'm just lost. Lost, I echoed. You weren't lost, Walter. You were entitled. And you mistook people's generosity for direction. He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. So that's it, you're just done. Done, I repeated quietly, completely. The doorman, hearing raised voices, appeared behind him. Is everything all right here, Ms. Thornton? Walter stiffened. Yeah, everything's fine. She's just being dramatic. The doorman's expression didn't change. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Walter's facade cracked right there, his face twisted between anger and disbelief. You really think you're better than me, don't you? No, I said, but I finally think I'm enough. That's new for me. He stared at me, the silence stretching thick and uncomfortable. Then he laughed once, a hollow, breaking sound. You're boring, Grace. Cold. No wonder I settled. For a moment I saw the flash of the old Walter, the cruelty he wrapped in charm. But it didn't land anymore. It was like watching a magician repeat a trick you've already figured out. Then why are you here? I asked softly, begging to stay. He didn't answer. The doorman took a step closer. Sir. Walter turned, shoved the bottle into the trash bin, and walked away. Shoulders slumped, shoes splashing through puddles. I watched until his silhouette disappeared under the streetlight. When I closed the door, I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just stood there in the quiet, the faint hum of the city outside mixing with my own steady breathing. For the first time in years, I realized my silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. He used to call me predictable. He used to say I lacked passion. But the truth was simpler. I had passion. I just spent it on keeping him stable. Now it belonged to me again. I walked to the piano, pressed a single key, and let the note linger. It filled the room soft, haunting, alive. A single sound that said everything words couldn't. You wanted a mirror that adored you, I whispered to the empty air, but I became one that refused to flatter. And that finally broke the spell. It's been 3 months since that night at my door. 3 quiet, luminous months, the kind that rebuild you in ways noise never can. Some mornings I still wake expecting to hear Walter's cologne, his playlist, his half-hummed confidence echoing down the hallway. But then I remember that silence is mine now. And it's beautiful. My days have a rhythm again, one that belongs entirely to me. I start with coffee on my balcony overlooking the river. The same river I used to only glance at through a car window while rushing to his errands. Now I take time to notice things, the shimmer of light on the water, the laughter from joggers below, the smell of wet stone after rain. I joined a painting class 2 blocks away. At first I told myself it was just to fill time, but the first moment I dipped a brush into color, something inside me unclenched. There's a quiet miracle in creation when your hands remember joy that your heart forgot. Occasionally, I still hear fragments of Walter's aftermath from mutual acquaintances. It's strange how the world doesn't stop collapsing for people who believe it revolves around them. He lost the BMW. The storage company auctioned off his boxes when he didn't pay the fee. Someone told me his mother finally took him in until he gets back on his feet. She apparently made him mow the lawn and attend therapy. Small justice, poetic in its simplicity. He's working freelance now, doing marketing gigs for small clients, the same kind of work he once mocked me for doing. A friend showed me one of his recent posts, a photo of him meditating by a window captioned, "Learning to let go of toxic people and expectations." I didn't feel anger, just an odd tenderness, the kind you feel for a ghost who no longer knows your name. Then one evening, my phone lit up with a new message from an unfamiliar number. The preview froze me for a second. Walter, using his mom's phone, I wanted you to know I started therapy. Not to win you back, just to figure out how I became this version of myself. You deserve better. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. For the first time since everything began, his words didn't sting. They simply ended. I didn't reply. Forgiveness. I realize doesn't always require communication. Sometimes silence is the most merciful closure. Life feels lighter now. I've started cooking again real meals, not the hurried dinners I used to make while he criticized my seasoning. My friends visit often, bringing laughter that fills the small apartment with warmth. I even adopted a plant, a fiddle leaf fig, that somehow keeps thriving despite my inconsistency. Maybe it recognizes freedom too. And once a week, I have coffee with Noah, a fellow painter from class. He has a quiet way of listening, of not trying to fix or claim anything. The first time we met, he insisted on paying for his own drink. It startled me how something so small could feel so disarming. Noah never asks about Walter, and I never bring him up. It's as if my life before this version of me has become a language I no longer speak. Last week, I ran into Walter's mother, Mrs. Donovan, at the grocery store. She greeted me with that careful, maternal warmth reserved for someone who used to be family. "Grace, dear," she said, placing her hand over mine. "You look peaceful. I hope my son didn't destroy that for you." I smiled. He tried. But peace doesn't belong to anyone else. She sighed, shaking her head. He needed this. We raised him thinking he could do no wrong. Maybe he's finally learning humility. I thought about that for a moment. Maybe we all are. When we parted, she pressed a small lavender sachet into my palm. "For calm energy," she said with a wink. "I already have plenty," I replied softly. That night, I stood by my window, the same place where I'd once watched the rain blur my reflection. Now the glass held something else: color, stillness, power. I thought about the woman I used to be, patient, careful, always trying to make a relationship work. The one who tolerated small cruelties because she feared the silence after them. She's gone, but I'm grateful for her. She was the bridge I walked across to reach myself. There's a single line I wrote on a sticky note above my desk now. Never confuse being needed with being loved. It's become my compass. Because love, real love, isn't an exchange of comfort for convenience. It's choosing each other freely without fear or debt. I'm not sure what comes next. Maybe more painting. Maybe more coffee with Noah. Maybe just more mornings where I wake up knowing my life is finally completely mine. When people ask how I managed to leave, I tell them this. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't power. It was clarity. The moment I realized peace was an option, Walter thought he settled for me. But the truth is, I was the one who settled for less, for silence, for someone who needed worship more than partnership. And when I finally stopped settling, I didn't just lose him. I found myself. The day he went to his spa retreat, the day he thought he was renewing himself, was the day I finally came home. Not to an apartment, not to a man, but to me.